Lately, we've been hearing a pretty consistent narrative out of the gaming community. They've been telling us that Grand Theft Auto is the biggest entertainment product there is, that Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be the highest selling game ever. We've been told over and over again that Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Red Dead Redemption 2 are all the highest selling games ever made, that Rockstar is the main character of the gaming industry, and that Nintendo has nothing that can possibly compete. And this is straight up delusional and wrong because anybody who looks at the actual numbers realizes that Nintendo pulls in way more than Rockstar. You know, Pokemon by itself is like 10 times bigger than GTA. So, what actually is going on here? What actually is the truth behind these numbers? Because it is true that Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Minecraft sell a lot. It is true that a lot of people pump money into their microtransactions. It is true that these games do have an audience and that they do well, but the reason for that is quite a bit different than you might expect. Grand Theft Auto 5 has been on the market since 2013. It has been re-released several times on every major video game platform other than Nintendo Switch. And it has been the go-to game for most people picking up a non-Nintendo console for over a decade. You know, if you're buying a PlayStation or an Xbox, you are specifically getting it for GTA. And it's not because it's a particularly good game or because people like it. It's one of those things that everyone just kind of has just to have it because it's this culturally ubiquitous thing that people buy just so they have it, just so they can mess around with it. It's not something that they really engage with or care about at all. You know, just like they don't care about the video game console at all. GTA, to its underage audience, is primarily a means of engaging in their weird, degenerate fantasies of just cruising around in vehicles, running people over, shooting people, causing mass mayhem. You know, it's just like, it's basically the video game equivalent of breaking your toys and just indulging in violent, destructive behavior. You know, it is a Clockwork Orange in a sense, where people are engaging in violence simply for the sake of violence. You know, nobody cares about the stories, the characters, like the actual game. The entire point of it is to run around a sandbox and just shoot people. That's it. There's no deeper appeal to Grand Theft Auto. And I think that's why we're kind of in this phase of the hype cycle of GTA 6 is that nobody's talking about the game, the characters, the story, the setting, what could happen in the game, what you can do in the game, what is going to be in the game, you know, the cars that are going to be in it, like, you know, the kind of things you'll be able to do to like your enemies, like the kind of missions, like, you know, how much content there'll be in the game, what the online features are going to be like. No, 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 no. The only thing that anybody is talking about is how much money it's going to make and how many units it's going to sell. So Grand Theft Auto, in short, has essentially become the kind of product that is popular because it's popular. It has no real like gravitas. It has no real appeal. People don't actually genuinely play these games and enjoy it. Like, it is the sort of product that people just buy and consume because everyone else is buying and consuming it as well. It is a herd mentality thing. You are cattle if you care about GTA in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, the cattle are going to move on to the next shiny thing immediately after Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. You know, it's not going to be relevant for very long, but the entire like narrative that this is like the biggest entertainment property there is just completely delusional. The only reason that Grand Theft Auto 5 has sold over 200 million units is entirely because we have not gotten a new Grand Theft Auto in the past 10 years. Okay. The reason why it has sold so much is that we haven't gotten any new sequels, spin offs, DLCs, expansions. No, you just get re releases of Grand Theft Auto 5 for your new console. Sometimes, a lot of people I know bought like 5 copies of this game just to see like how different it is on like each of like the 5 primary platforms. Like Grand Theft Auto is just this like industry thing that people see as like the glass ceiling of the industry. Like nothing is going to outperform or outdo Grand Theft Auto. It's the biggest, most ambitious video game franchise there is. But that simply isn't true. Like the reality is, the reason why Pokemon is so much more successful than Grand Theft Auto is because they do this crazy thing of actually releasing new video games. You know, when Pokemon X and Y came out in 2013, we got Sun and Moon in 2016. We got Sword and Shield in 2018. Okay, we got Scarlet and Violet in 2022, and we're getting Winds and Waves next year in 2027. You know, immediately after Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. And people may argue that like Grand Theft Auto 6 may outsell Winds and Waves. You're going to see a lot of articles about that, I think, about how much bigger and better Grand Theft Auto 6 is than Pokemon. But the simple reality is, um, Winds and Waves was produced on an actual budget. It actually has other games in the series. You know, it has spin-offs, it has merchandise, it has like anime series. You know, the Pokemon cards are blowing up right now, right? The simple fact of the matter is, like, Pokemon Winds and Waves does not need to outsell Grand Theft Auto 6. In fact, it completely goes against Nintendo's superior business strategy of releasing a number of high quality games within reasonable time frames. Because Pokemon releases such high quality games so quickly, they can appeal to different people. People can skip a release and then come back for the next one. You have people who buy every release. You have people who, like, you know, maybe check the series out at one point and then never come back again. Like, the simple fact of the matter is, like, Pokemon's approach to marketing, to keeping itself relevant, to putting out new releases, it's better than Grand Theft Auto's method of waiting as like such a ludicrously long time in between releases. Like Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be a title that has to succeed. You know, people can't be disappointed with it. There can't be any problems with it at all. Like it has to be the biggest thing ever or it's going to be seen as a complete disappointment. And Pokemon doesn't have that problem. Pokemon has the freedom to innovate. They have the freedom to experiment. They have the freedom to put out spin-off titles. They have the ability to like have different developers get on board. You've seen Pokemon do a lot with like, you know, mobile releases and like experimental spin-offs. Like you would never see something like Pokemon Snap come out of GTA, right? GTA actually has a very narrow appeal. If it's not a fully 3D open world game, GTA just wouldn't sell. Like if they tried to slap the GTA label onto like any kind of rail shooter, like the audience would be outraged. It would be seen as cheap and derivative and not like up to the franchise's standards, and it would fail. The simple fact of the matter is, like, Grand Theft Auto's appeal hinges on this idea that they can put that they have the biggest budgets in the industry, that they're making the biggest, most expansive video game franchise in the world, that they're so cutting edge, that they're so far beyond anyone else, that they're so much better, that like it's so that it's seen by like the as the industry standard by default. But much like Avatar, you know, when it comes to the box office release, that doesn't actually translate to actual relevancy. You know, that doesn't actually translate to actual, you know, income, you know, because there are plenty of games that have made more than Grand Theft Auto 5 over the past decade. You know, Fortnite blew up. You know, Pokemon Go blew up. We've seen like, you know, so many cases of like games like that coming out of nowhere and just dominating Grand Theft Auto as a brand. Like what we're seeing now, I think it's safe to say, is that like the traditional AAA method of just like bloating budgets and just like making everything ludicrously expensive to create the illusion that like what you're creating is a cutting edge product, that's not going to be sustainable anymore. More and more people are beginning to realize the value in low budget titles from Nintendo consoles. Games like Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, Pokepia, games like Mario Tennis Fever, all have been ludicrously successful this year in spite of like massive grift campaigns against them because people are beginning to understand the value in this kind of game design. How everything doesn't have to be a big AAA realistic game with like thousands of hours of content. Like what we're seeing now is that the industry is kind of moving past this idea that everything needs to be super realistic, everything needs to be adult, everything needs to be mature, everything needs to have an Oscar-worthy story, everything needs to be woke. That's a big thing. We're moving past like the industry trends of the early 2000s. And GTA, I feel, is still stuck in the past where they're making their game as if an open world is still inherently appealing and unique to people. The simple fact of the matter is that other open world games have been doing what Grand Theft Auto has been doing better for years now. Breath of the Wild like completely stomped GTA when it came to its open world design. Xenoblade Chronicles X destroyed Grand Theft Auto's world design. Like we're seeing like companies, primarily Nintendo, just demolish Rockstar at their own game. And the only reason we're going through this song and dance about Grand Theft Auto 6 being better than those games is that the audience are plebs and don't actually play everything that comes out. And so have no idea that Nintendo is as dominant as it is in this aspect. They have no idea that Nintendo is dominating Rockstar. They have no idea about the reality of the situation that they find themselves in. Like, the simple fact of the matter is that Grand Theft Auto is a brand that cannot possibly compete with Nintendo long term. The only thing keeping this brand relevant is this idea that Grand Theft Auto 6 has been in development for 10 years, that they're giving it $1 billion budget, that it's going to be like so much better than Grand Theft Auto 5. And like, it doesn't really go much deeper than that because the audience for these games, they are so low IQ and so stupid, they can't possibly process this very simple concept that having a high budget and selling a lot of units doesn't necessarily mean your game is going to be the best thing ever. And I think that's something that Grand Theft Auto 6 fans are going to have to learn the hard way. They are gearing themselves up for the disappointment of the century. Like, I genuinely think this very well may be the release that straight up kills PlayStation and Xbox. Like, if this comes out and if it's as broken and unplayable as Cyberpunk 2077, we are going to be in a disaster. Like, the industry is not prepared for Grand Theft Auto 6 to underperform or not do well. If this game is polarizing, if it's unpopular, if people turn on it, people are not like prepared for what that means for the industry because Grand Theft Auto, the promise of Grand Theft Auto is the only thing keeping non-Nintendo gaming relevant in 2026. When it comes to like actual industry enthusiasm and people getting excited about new upcoming games, like everyone's anticipating the Switch 2, everyone's anticipating the Nintendo Direct, everyone's anticipating like the future of that company. Nobody is that interested in what Rockstar is doing outside of Grand Theft Auto because they know nothing is bigger than Grand Theft Auto. If they screw this up, if this falls through, if this underperforms, the industry is not prepared for what that means for the rest of the industry. And even in that hypothetical scenario in which Grand Theft Auto 6 does do well, even in that hypothetical scenario in which Grand Theft Auto 6 does succeed and become popular, the simple fact of the matter is we're going to have to wait another decade for the next one at least. Okay, I imagine the next one will take like 20 years, and then we'll have to go through this entire process all over again where eventually something is going to have to give and people are going to have to acknowledge that the game isn't living up to the hype. And that's kind of where we're at now, honestly. Looking at Grand Theft Auto 6, looking at how they haven't even begun marketing it, looking at how like little we know about the game and how little we've seen, like what we're going to see is like the disaster of the century. And I feel as if people just aren't capable of wrapping their heads around how quickly this company or brand can decline. The instant people stop feeding microtransactions into Grand Theft Auto, the entire company is going to collapse.